All right. Just having a little fun before we get started. Yes, yes, yes. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am your host. Sorry, I'm a little late today. I don't know, just some minor technical difficulties with my setup, but I am here now, and I'm not going to shortchange you. I have a really fun topic for us tonight to discuss. Let me just get myself situated. All right, I have a fun topic for us, and the reason why I say it's a fun topic is because it came about due to the fact that we are entering week 3 in our classes, and so much to unravel there. But welcome to Women Wealth Wednesday. I am your host, Dr. Gladys David. I am the founder of She Rises Academy and She Invests Realty. So we're going to have a fun time tonight, because tonight we are discussing how to start in real estate without quitting your job. And I'll give you a recap as to how this came along. But more importantly, I'm going to be talking to you tonight about why I chose this topic. I talk about it all the time, but those that don't know me, I am a real estate professional who has been in the business for the last 17 years in the space of real estate investing. And as a real estate investor, my journey was to work alongside my job. Now, it's really important that I share a little bit of that with you, so you'll have the context as to why and how I'm discussing this. I have a bit of a knowledge and expertise to it. Others may say, well, why didn't you just quit your job? There's many reasons. As a real estate investor, you need capital. Capital. I'm not talking about being a real estate agent. I'm licensed in New Jersey for that too. That's different. You should always treat your business or your side hustle as whatever you need as a business. For me, I deliberately jumped into this space knowing that it was going to help me steal away from my corporate job. So I did them both simultaneously, providing me a very comfortable lifestyle, I might add, because I live in New Jersey, and New Jersey is right up there with all the other expensive states to live in, like New York and California. And it provided me a lifestyle that afforded me great vacations, time off away from my family. And while I was working my corporate job, with each step that I took, I had a very comfortable position. I'm a former attorney, so therefore the income that I made from my job allowed me to grow my business. The income that I made from my job allowed me to buy property. So not only am I an investor, I became a landlord. All the things that I talk about, I've done. All the things I teach on, I know personally and firsthand. And my partner and I are moving into multi-units, 40 units and more. That's kind of where we're at now. But that wasn't the beginning for me. I'm talking to you tonight from the beginning perspective. Where do you start? How do you start? Which is why I said you don't have to quit your job to start in real estate investing. I've got some good notes. People have sent me questions from earlier today. If you are watching me live or if you are catching me on the replay, I've got you covered. All right, so let's just delve into this. Now, I shared my journey with you, and now let's talk about some of the entry points, right? There are 3 beginner-friendly ways to get into real estate investing if you have never, ever invested before. Now, this may not sound like investing to you, but guess what? It really is. Just stick with it. Stick with what I'm sharing with you, and you will grow from this position and being able to do more. Okay, so I want you to take very good notes tonight, and I'm going to just give you 3 little short points. All right. The first one I want to talk about is house hacking. You're like, what? That's not investing. Yes, it is. It is. It is an investment strategy. It's not the big bang for the buck. If that's what you're looking for and you've already got this figured out, then this may be too elementary for you. But to those that are really so afraid and don't know where to start, I'm giving you some tips. For those that are advanced for that, which is why She Rises Academy is there. I teach on a much higher level for those that have invested in themselves. And if that is you I'm talking to, and this isn't for you, then catch me at CoachGladys.com. Get into the course for the next semester, because we are closed for this semester. The next cohort starts in November. So I'm going to pause right here and share with you that you can pre-register now for that cohort where there's a higher level of learning there. Tonight on Women Wealth Wednesday, this is the very ground floor on where you can begin. So let's talk about house hacking. So for example, you have an apartment, but you don't have a house, you have a condo or a townhouse. You can start house hacking by renting out one room. Now you say, I don't want any roommates. It's not forever. We're just building on what you have. But if you have a house and you have a spare space in your house, it can be a bedroom, it can be a basement. You know, here in the state of New Jersey, one room, let's be real, rents out in central New Jersey for up to $1,000 a month. Am I talking to somebody tonight? So let's not take away the fact that we're talking a room. I did say I am in central New Jersey and I am in South Jersey, where the prices fluctuate from central to south. So it will make a difference where you start and where you're at. However, use some tools accordingly to determine what could a room go for your house. When I'm giving you my specific is based on where I am located. All right, so you use that one room, you rent it out, and you do that over a period of time. Maybe your cash flow from the difference of what your mortgage or what your rent is, it can be a little bit or a lot of it. It all depends on where you are and what station you are in life. So if you have your own home, if it's a single family home, you can start by that. If it's a duplex or a triplex, then we're definitely talking about game changers here, right? So if you don't own your own home, pause. Let's stop right there. That's actually where you are beginning as an investor. I always tell people, you want to learn how to fix and flip. You want to learn how to wholesale. You want to learn how to do all these things, but you don't own your own home. We'll talk about it a little bit later in terms of what it takes to run a real estate investing business, not a side hustle. While this may start out as a side hustle for you, it will eventually grow into a business. And when you are running a business, you must have an LLC. You are not running a business as a wholesaler, or you are not running a fix and flip business under your name, Gladys David. No. That is not how you do it. But we're talking about the starting stepping point of house hacking. So if we are house hacking, start out with where you at. You already own your home. If you don't own your own home, then let's talk about getting into your first property is your first investment with a 3.5% down payment. Okay. I have a really good example for you to show you what a 3.5% down payment looks like in a home in New Jersey, using the very same method that I'm talking about. I use a low starting point based on today's interest rate. So let me do a quick screen share with you, utilizing some very, very simple mathematics. Okay. This was based on you buying your first home with a 3.5% down payment with 1 point origination. Now, I am not a lender, but I work with enough lenders to share with you that, let me find my screen here. Okay. So I work with enough lenders to share with you that, let me make this bigger so we all can see, so that you'll be able to see this real life example that I have here in front of you. So your down payment is 1.7. I mean, it's $4,222. And there's a point included there. So there's some government fees. We'll leave that for later. But here it is. Your point is what you're paid directly to the lender in exchange for reducing the rate. So the rate that I received earlier today is 5.25%. So this is a 30-year fixed mortgage. And so you are financing $241,250. Of course, you have to be responsible for closing costs. So take away that, there's your down payment. Your monthly payment at this interest rate is 5.25%. If you lock it, it's going to give you 5.68. This was actually an example that I worked on earlier. So we threw in homeowners insurance. Again, I picked a very low entry point. Your insurance should not be costing you an exorbitant amount of money. And then the property tax I picked was like $2,600. So that is possible. That is very possible here in South Jersey. I'm not making these numbers up. There's no HOA, and PMI will be incorporated later on. But all in, $1,631. Okay, $1,631. This will get you in South Jersey a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom in parts of South Jersey. The very tail end of South Jersey. It's an area that I service a lot, and you can still get in on the entry point. In Central Jersey, this won't buy you much, but in South Jersey, it will. So when I say to you, if you don't have your first property as a investment property, that's your starting point, sis. This is where you're starting, so that you can utilize that home to be your stepping stone to build on from where you are at. Okay, you can rent out the basement if it has one. You can rent out a room there. So now we're talking about building equity. You can stay in this single family home, or better yet, why not buy a duplex if you are not married or don't have anyone living with you? And even if you do, let that be your starting point. Buy the duplex, collect rent from the other units. Now, I did tell you that it's $1,631. So if you rent out a single family home and rent out a room, let's just use an example of, say, you're collecting $800. So now that's half of your rent that's being covered by renting out that one room in your home. So you're only responsible for 50% of it. So you say to me, sis, I don't want anyone in that close proximity living with me. I get it. It's not forever. So buy the duplex. So that way you can have someone not in your personal space, but someone living in the home that you have just purchased, that they can cover half of your rent. Okay. So we can get into that a little bit later, but I wanted to share with you that house hacking is a real investment strategy. My first purchase when I was single was a duplex. I had a garden apartment, and then above me was 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom that literally paid for my lifestyle. So from the very beginning, I've always been an investor. I didn't have a title as an investor, but yet that's what I was. I was an investor. Okay. The second hack I want you to take from me tonight is the buy and hold hack. Now, what is that? Now, you've already owned your first home. You no longer qualify for that 3.5% down payment. So now we're talking about buying a property outside of your current home. All right. So now that you have your first property, now we're talking about traditional investing. So we're talking about buying, renting, and holding for long-term appreciation and cash flow. That is definitely very important. Long-term cash flow. So let me give you a real example. You buy a home for $150,000. It's a single family home. And and it cash flows for an additional $300 a month. Let's use the example that I used earlier. Let's assume that that house, the rent is $1,631, and you don't live there. You are going to rent it out. Let's just round it up, $1,600. You rent it out for $2,200. The delta, the difference of that is your cash flow. So that cash flow that you are now living with allows you to be able to use that cash instead of getting a part-time job. Now, many people think that $300 or $400 is not a lot per month, and it's not. We're not talking about the big chunks of money that you're looking for to gain that experience, but the gap between the money that you're making and the money that you're receiving, that can be a life changer for many people. $300 can cover groceries. It can replace the need for you to go out and get a part-time job. So instead of trading hours for dollars, you're actually making money in your sleep every month. Now, I know you're going to tell me that landlording is not your thing. So true. Now, in the course, we talk about all the different ways how you can landlord without feeling like a landlord. However, this is not an extension of the course. I'm giving you some house hacks that real estate can really replace the need for you to get an additional job, but you must be coachable and you must follow through with what I am sharing with you so that you can implement some of these strategies if you have the right guidance. And that's what I do. I am a coach. I am the right guidance for those that accept my coaching methodology. And there have been others that have graduated from the program in 24, have successfully gone on to do multiple deals. All right, so you want to expound on what you've already started and build up to getting your 90-day entry point as we're talking about building out your strategy. Okay, so buying and holding. So I want to talk a little bit more about an extra $300 a month, because many of you may not understand that extra $300 a month, for most new investors, they don't quite understand where and how that's going to change things for them. But it's not the small amount that you're looking at. That $300 a month is a replacement of you going out to get a job. We're not talking about the YouTube videos that you're seeing. We're not talking about the HGTV that you are seeing. We're not talking about the social media strategies that you're seeing others say that they're making X number. We're talking about you. We're talking about your starting point with zero experience. Okay, so let's stay grounded on that and let's stay focused on where we need to be. I want to share something with you earlier that I pulled from the U.S. Bureau of Statistics. The average part-time job is around $12 to $15 an hour. That means that makes about $300, right? So you have to work 20 to 25 hours a month. That's working Saturday or weeknights or after work to make that $300 an hour. And guess what your trade-off is? Your time, you're away from home, you're away from your kids, your self-care, and more importantly, your creativity. Now, the same 20 to 25 hours that you are learning to invest in yourself, that you are learning how to do the things that I'm sharing with you, can generate the very same amount of money. Because that's what it really takes to practice real estate. It takes 20 to 25 hours per week. So, but instead of trading hours for dollars, your value has gone up, because we're talking about just one house. So we multiply that over and over and over, and you will grow. So let me share with you what that $300 can really mean. A solid rental property, a house hack. You can build on that same momentum with that $300. You go from $300 with one house, while you're sleeping, while you're at work, or while you're traveling. So that $300 buffer, it covers a car note, it covers your child care, and it pays off your debt faster. If you take that $300 and pay it off on a credit card, then you are paying off your debt with someone else covering your debt for you. So now you cleared up your credit by paying off your debt off of someone else's back. So that's exactly where we're going. We are going with the fact that we are starting with paying off your debt by using the very second house hack I just talked about, which is buying and holding with. So as we are buying and holding, this is what you're learning. You're analyzing deals, you're getting caught up on your dreams, and you're figuring out moments away on how you can steal away with this. You're just doing 20 hours a week hustling. Instead of hustling, you are building on the momentum that you have just gotten one property with that house hack, and you are now ready to move on to your same property. So the same income that you're getting from a part-time job by working in, retail is the same income that you can get by renting out a room in your house, renting out space in your home for an additional starting as low as $300 a month. And over a period of time, that money does start to reflect where you are going, paying off a credit card, paying off your car note, paying off a student loan. See, we're talking about building momentum as you are starting to move into your own of building real estate. So also, later on, we'll touch on, getting creative financing when you have already built your momentum. But for right now, it's safe to say that when you're starting at the bottom and don't know where you're going, this is a great place for you to start. The third thing I want to talk to you about, which is really, I have a short little presentation on that. It is wholesaling. Wholesaling is very much, now we've gone from a small amount of money, your confidence is building, you've got some extra cash flow. You can now talk about learning how to wholesale. Wholesale, simply described, it's not a very complex thing. Wholesaling is A to B to C. Now, what are you talking about? A to B to C is very much a very simple thing. It's the real world of being able to get into real estate, but by controlling your rights to a property. It's your rights to the property. And we'll get into it. It's your rights to a property, but not necessarily selling. It'll get clear to you in a minute. But let me break down to you very simplistically. There's no property ownership when you are wholesaling. What you're doing is you're finding deals and you're assigning the contract. Write that down. There's no property ownership. You find the deals, you assign a contract. The second piece of wholesaling is it's a fast hustle. It's a fast hustle. It's a low money down or no money down, depending on how you structure it and depending on what state you're in. It's very important for me to share that. Again, I'm in New Jersey. Check with your local states if you need to. I know that Chicago may require. There are some other states, Virginia does and Maryland does. But, check into whether or not wholesaling in your state is something that you can do without a real estate license. I'm talking about in Jersey, we do not need one. Okay, but it requires high effort and networking, but very profitable. I'll share with you a real example in a minute of how profitable this can be. And while you can do this, you have to be strategic about it. While you can wholesale, you have to know how to be able to really maneuver yourself between that A and B. And when I give you an example, you'll know. So when you find a property that's a good deal, you put it under contract, and then you sell your rights to that contract to another buyer. Now, the buyer could be another wholesaler, or the buyer could be an investor who is going to fix and flip. I've never really sold my rights to wholesaling to another wholesaler. However, you usually want to sell it to someone who's going to be able to close the deal. And usually those that are able to close that deal are investors who have bigger pockets, investors who are going to fix the ultimate property, and they're going to sell it and they get a bigger profit. But here's the thing. Pigs get eaten. When you are first starting in this business, make sure your wholesaling matches what it is. That, don't make your fee $30,000, $40,000, because investors like us are very savvy. We're able to do our own back work and homework and like, no, this is too high for this area. This is too high for, I don't believe the after repair value is this. So be very savvy, be very smart, and be very astute. So when you wholesale, here's a point I want you to write down. You never actually buy the property. That's very important for you to know. You're the middle woman. Okay, you are in the middle of this transaction. That's why I say it's an A, B, C transaction. You're in the middle. Okay, the reason why you're in the middle, you're the B. I'll definitely break it down for you by sharing with you a real life example where it it makes better sense. So you're the B, you get the property from A, and you're going to sell it to C. And at the closing table, you collect in on what you're doing. So for what you're doing, well, what you're doing is actually putting the deal together. What you're doing is you found a low-hanging fruit. What you're doing is you are the one who got under contract in the first place with the low-hanging fruit. All you're looking to do is help the person get from the distress that got them in the first place. There's a couple of things that why people choose a wholesale transaction versus listing it with the licensed agent like myself, for example. There's a lot of reasons, and I'll give you some of the reasons, right? You say, well, why would somebody want to sell a property when they can just list a home? Multiple reasons. They could be behind on their payments. Okay, so they're feeling distressed. They could be divorcing, okay, and they don't want to deal with it. The property could need a lot of work, meaning, it's not up to par, up to today's standards. As a licensed professional who sells homes in South Jersey and Central Jersey, there's a certain aesthetic that comes with listing your home. The aesthetics that comes with it is that the expectations of the end buyer, which is on the retail residential side of the business, they're walking in it and they're hoping that, this 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom has all the bells and whistles. And today, what requires all the bells and whistles is, you have a granite countertop or quartz countertop. That kitchen is off the hook. I mean, they got the LPV, the floors look good. I mean, it's just marble. No. This is not the kind of house that you are going to buy. This house can get there based on what you will do to it, the ultimate C person will do to it to bring it up to the standards of the neighborhood, which is why we talk about ARV. ARV stands for after repair value. Once the property has an after repair value, meaning that you have found some comps in the neighborhood that are very similar, that have been updated, upgraded, and maintained, are market ready. So on your team, you're going to have a real estate agent. If you yourself are not one, you'll have someone take a look at what are the 3 homes, most recent home sales within the last 90 days, preferably within up to a 2-mile proximity from that home that you are looking for, that has the value of a home that's fully fixed up ready, that someone has bought and said, this property sold for X. And so that's what my property looks like if it was fixed up. So you come up with what's called an after repair value. But the current as is value of the property that you're buying is way below that. But if you brought it up and brought those repairs to the standard of what that neighborhood looks like and what those homes look like in that neighborhood, then by all means, you will be able to fix it up, get it sold for the after repair value in that neighborhood. Okay, so that's really what we're talking about with the ARV. So that's why people don't sell with real estate agents when their home needs that kind of repair. They would be very open to having a conversation with someone like you, the new investor who is a wholesaler, which is very much a profitable way of starting business. You are connected with, you have a buyer's list that you have built out, which is the C person. You belong to a real estate investment club. So therefore, you're able to go to these clubs during your weekly, bi-weekly, however frequently they meet, and say, hey, I have a property that I'm under contract with, and I want to be able to share with you. You can share it with other investors. You can email your other investors and let them know if that fits their buy box. And I don't want to get into that much detail of a buy box, but let's just say that this is the house that they're investing in. This is the house that they absolutely enjoy. So therefore, they are ready. And so you can sell your rights, assign your rights to them. Okay. Now, how do you find these properties? There's a couple of different ways, and I want to give you a few that I've used in the past, but this here is definitely noteworthy. You can find them online. You can find them through real estate agents. You can drive through neighborhoods where, it may look like the home is a little dilapidated, the grass is high. We call that driving for dollars. That's one way that you can definitely find properties. Or, you can buy a list, the probates. You can get into the probates. The pre-foreclosures, absentee owners. There's multiple ways to be able to attract, that particular low-hanging fruit that may need those repairs. And so therefore, you will be able to negotiate a price with that seller You offer to buy the house at a discount, which is below market because it's not valued to what the market is. And you both come to an agreement and you sign a purchase contract. This is not the contract that you would use, with an agent. The contract is standard. And, in my program, we talk about the different contracts that you can use for wholesaling. It's not the traditional one that real estate agents would use, but definitely you want to be able to sign a contract with them, which gives you the exclusive rights to buy the property for a set price. Usually, within 30 to 45 days, you can close out this transaction. It's a quick sale because we're looking for cash buyers. Most investors that I know are, they either are cash buyers or they're using hard money, which is equivalent to, using hard money. If you missed the sessions that I've had on hard money, definitely go back and watch those reruns. We talk about the difference between hard money and private money, but it's usually a cash transaction. It's not, something that's going to be financeable over a long period of time. Investors, we operate a lot differently. We don't have time for not appraisals. We don't have time for, the waiting around, for either a conventional or FHA loan or a VA loan. No, that we're not buying that way. That's actually reserved more for the individual that is purchasing their property, traditionally. We operate a lot differently. So we want to be able to get that in there as quickly as we can, get in and out. So you're going to assign your rights to that buyer. You're going to assign your rights to that buyer. So the C person. And then when you do assign your rights, guess what? At the closing table, he agrees or she agrees, whoever you're buying from, for the price that you guys come up with, and you, for a fee, assignment fee, you're going to show up as other on that HUD one. It's not going to say assignment fee. It's just other. All right. So now would be a good time for me to share with you what a real life example looks like. All right. So let me share my screen. All right. All right. It's open. Yes. Here we go. So you should be able to see this. Yes. All right. So here we go. Here we go. I took out a lot of names to protect those that were involved. A 70-year-old homeowner inherited a property from her sister. The house needs work, old roof and outdated kitchen. The kitchen that your grandmother had, the one that's kind of yellow with the wallpaper, that kitchen. All right. She doesn't want to deal with the repairs or listing it with an agent. You offer her $90,000 to buy the property. Okay, so you found this distressed property. So the 70-year-old homeowner in this transaction is A. She is A. You are B. You sign a contract with her. There's a magic word in your contract, assigns to. There's a word is your buy or assigns to. The word assigns to is your best friend. That is going to get you what you need. Okay. And then you talk to local investors. You can find them on Facebook, Bigger Pockets, your local real estate meetup clubs. I told you about that earlier. So there you can do that. All right. And hey, I've got a deal in this neighborhood. The ARV, which is the after repair value, is $150,000. It needs about $30K in repair. You can pick it up for $100,000. Okay. So this is the C person we're having this conversation with. Okay, so the investor who is C, he agrees. You assign him the contract for $100,000. At the closing, the investor pays. He comes to the closing table with $100K. The seller, which was A, she gets her $90,000. You, who are B, the investor, your assignment fee is $10,000, and you get your fee. You're on the HUD one, you are the person. So guess what? You didn't buy the house, you didn't fix anything, and you didn't use your credit. That's a game changer. Okay, I don't know if you're here for this. This is a game changer. So we have went from learning a simple house hack, which you, by the way, you can do a house hack and a wholesale at the same time. There's nothing stopping you from still house hacking. That allows you to be able to use that money as your down payment when you are working this wholesale deal. You can put down $500 as a good faith to this woman, letting you know you're very serious. You can put down $1,000. That $1,000 never really clears, but in the event you work with the title company, as I do, that's what that $1,000 represents. You're holding the title on this. There's so much more that comes with wholesaling. I made it simplistic today. I teach a whole course on wholesaling. So I'm giving you the high level of how to wholesale. But this is basically what it comes down to. All the back work that comes with it, you will do your own due diligence. Okay. However, I'm giving you for tonight, within the time frame that I have, I do not have a full hour plus to go over wholesaling. It is a separate investment strategy. So when I say to you that this is just a simple methodology, then this is where you're starting. This is your starting point. This is your entry point. If you want to learn more about wholesaling, in our current investment group, there are people that are spending the full 10 weeks of getting the nuts and the bolts of wholesaling. That's in their repertoire of things to learn. So there's a whole separate group that are doing wholesaling separate from the ones that are doing fixing and flipping. I just want to break it down because the cohort is open for November. So if this really is something you want to do and say, you know what, Gladys, this really resonates with me, I know I can do it, then at the end of the session, I will tell you how to get in contact with me. It is actually CoachGladys.com. All right. So now that I've given you the very simple ways of wholesaling, it's profitable. So it's not that $300 that we talked about, which, by the way, you keep doing that anyway. You never stop. You never stop house hacking. Okay. You never stop. That's your cash cow. So you're not selling the house. You didn't sell the house. You just sold your right to buy the house to another investor at a very good price, because that investor is going to be the one to fix it up. He has the capital with the $30,000. He had the budget at the 100. And so he's going to make the bigger profit, the 50K. So he's going to make the bigger profit. And you'll get to that point because when you start fixing and flipping, those are chunks of money at one time, if that's what you want to do. You don't ever have to move from one to the other, by the way, if you choose not to do it. If you choose to stay in the space of just being a wholesaler, there's nothing wrong with that. This is a whole business all by itself. All right. So let's be clear. I have wholesale well over 200 transactions in my career, and I don't have a problem with it now. If I get into a transaction that I feel is not going to be lucrative for me, and maybe something went really wrong along the way, perhaps, I thought I would be able to fix it and flip it at the price that I thought, and my budget is above 30. When you open up a wall, I find a leak and I don't want to spend the extra money for it. Perhaps a bigger investor who has more money may want to spend the money and get a bigger price for it. Guess what? I can wholesale that deal too. That's what's called mitigating the risk. So mitigating the risk is what you do as an investor. Mitigating the risk is very important. You have to be able to think another strategy in case the first strategy you had in mind didn't work. We don't panic when our first strategy doesn't work. We just say, let's see, what's my exit? The community that we have in She Rises Academy, with the ones that are in the class, they can share their tips and things like that with each other. There's two communities. There's the open community for the public, and there's the community in the school. In the community is where you can bring your deals, where there are other coaches besides me that are actually going to help you brainstorm, help you start to learn the strategies. All right. We are moving quickly tonight. I did start a little late, and I promised you I was going to be here for the full step. All right. So I gave you the example of the real wholesale, which is very much, how it really, really operates. But it's about having the right tools. It's about having the right strategies. It's about being able to connect the dots. Okay. So when it comes to wholesaling, it's perfect for the woman who doesn't have a lot of cash. It's perfect because it's a hustle, but you're acting as a connector. So you have the connection to put the transaction together. You're just bringing people to the table, linking people together who are interested in what you have to offer. Okay. So what you have to offer, it's to the C guy, but to the individual who is in distress, you have just saved them from the stress that they're under. But with every investment comes a pro and a con. I'm not going to tell you that there are no pros. So let me share with you some of the pros and the cons that comes along with it. So that way you can have a bigger picture. Nothing comes without a risk. Everything has a risk. So here's some of the pros. Wholesaling. Wholesaling is control without ownership. The pros, very simple. No money or credit needed. Fast cash, anywhere from 5 to 15,000 per deal, even more, depending on where you start. But this is definitely a good range. The lower the property cost and the bigger the ARV, the more you have in there, the more pot that you can split with everyone. Don't be greedy. Pigs get eaten. So just stick to something that makes sense. But this is a good range. The bigger the prices, the higher the fee. You learn real estate hands-on, okay? And you build a buyer and a seller network. So you have it both sides. Now, here's some of the cons. It can be high pressure because you're under contract with the person who is in high distress. This person is looking to liquidate this property. They're behind in their rent. Every day is an eternity for them, okay? Just remember that. It requires hustle and marketing. I say hustle because you have to find an end buyer if you haven't built your list. And if you haven't built your list, you're going to have to market that property. And marketing that property means you want to talk to as many investors and expose it to as many as possible. I talked to you earlier about Bigger Pockets, the Real Estate Investment Club, go on Facebook. Right now, there's so many Facebook groups that has opportunities. There, you have to market it. You have to really push your property. You have to know your market where you're at, so that way you'll be able to push it. You don't necessarily have to wholesale where you live, but you know what? You have to at least have enough knowledge of what's going on in that market for you to be able to intelligently feel confident that you are wholesaling at the right price and that your ARV is where it should be. All right. Legal rules. I said that to you earlier. Check with your state if it doesn't require to have a license. New Jersey doesn't. Check with your state if it does require. There are so many states now that are really catching on to what investors are doing. So they're changing the rules on wholesaling. So just do some homework, do some due diligence. And of course, the income is not passive or guaranteed. Okay, it's not guaranteed. But if you stick with it long enough and you build a very good reputation, you will start to develop that, hey, Gladys is a really good wholesaler. You may want to work with her. So I want to put that out there to you. Now, here's a question. Have you ever helped a friend connect, like recommending a hairstylist or a restaurant or, even something that you sample, a perfume recently, and say, and you just talk to them? That's what wholesaling is. It's just basically connecting the dots between you and another person. But the difference between recommending a restaurant, a movie, or perfume is that you get paid. You get paid to do this. This is actually something that you are collecting a couple $1,000s per transaction. Now imagine you do 3 of these a month. That's a game changer. I know you thought $300 wasn't, but that's a game changer. The $300 that we talked about while you're wholesaling can help you market, help you with your lead generation. There's so many things that $300 can do for you. So you thought I forgot about that house hack, but I didn't. While we're talking the bigger money, I want to share with you that can really be a game changer for you. All right. So let's just not forget that it's still profitable. Now, which of these that I've discussed tonight, we talked about house hacking, we talked about wholesaling, and we talked about buy and holding. Which of these 3 fits your lifestyle in the next 6 months? Where do you see yourself? We are entering the last quarter of the year. Us investors, we operate in quarters and methods. So therefore, as we are entering the final quarter, as we're entering the final quarter of the year, where do you see yourself? Do you see yourself executing any of these three strategies? Where do you see yourself? We talked about three strategies tonight. We talked about house hacking, which is a smaller way of getting started, generating anywhere from 300 to 500, depending on what you're house hacking. You can house hack a room, you can house hack a full floor. I mean, depending on where you're at and what station you are in life. It's as little as 300 that can help turn things around for many people. Is it the buy and hold? You already have a home and you're looking now to purchase your first investment. It could be a condo that you buy. It can be a townhouse. It doesn't always have to be a house. That's what I want to share. It doesn't have to be really big. You can start by buying a condo. During the pandemic, we looked at condominiums that were in the South Jersey area at the time, not anymore. These were condos that were in the casino area in New Jersey. If you're from New Jersey, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They were selling for $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. For many people, that may not have been lucrative because some of the units were, I think, 300 to 500 square feet. They weren't big, but guess what? These properties were sitting on the boardwalk. These properties are in a casino area. These properties were very much good for Airbnb, short-term rentals. There's so many things you can do with it. So you say, why would someone who has as much experience as I do be interested in it? Well, I'm always growing the portfolio. So you don't just stop at one strategy. So that opened the door to Airbnb, which is considered short-term rentals. So during those peak season, we don't rent them out for months at a time. During the peak season, we rent those properties out at the highest peak. In New Jersey, the shore area, which is Jersey Shore, is so popular that you don't want to use that as an Airbnb. You can get literally anywhere from as low as $2,000 to up to $5,000 a week. And that's just giving you a low ball offer. You can go really high. So we talked about buying and renting, or either using it as a short-term rental. So don't think too big. Small is good too. Small is an excellent strategy. And the third one we discussed, and I gave you a real life example, was wholesaling. Which one do you think you want to execute within the next 6 months? Give that some thought and let it marinate. We have to be able to match your strategy with your risk. Now, risk is all about your lifestyle. Now, these are questions that you want to ask yourself. How many hours a week could I commit to this? Earlier in my talk, I said to you that most people who work a part-time job is usually 20 to 25 hours a week. I also shared with you that as an investor, that's what I spend, 25 hours a week. The same amount of time that it takes to work a part-time job is the same amount of time that I do in investing. So, but my results are greater than a part-time job. The second question I want you to ask yourself is, how comfortable are you with risk? Now, I'm going to break it down to you in a few minutes of what your comfortability is with risk, but it's important for you to ask yourself that question. Ask yourself, what's your risk level? What's your risk tolerance? Risk tolerance makes all the difference in the world. It really, really does, because that'll determine your comfort level. And I want to break it down to you based on the things that we've discussed tonight. Do you want passive income or active income? Now, what's the difference between passive? Passive is making money in your sleep. The $300 a month that you're renting out, that's, we call it mailbox money, right? You didn't do anything. You're not working for it. It's just there. It comes in the mailbox, or you collect it every month. Active income is your job, which you already have. So use what you already have to grow your passive. The next question I want to ask you is, do you prefer to build equity or generating quick cash? Generating quick cash would be the lump sums that we talked about. That's your wholesaling, right? Use that money that you make from your first situation, and what are you going to do with it? You're going to use it as a down payment towards your purchase, right? That's what you should do with it. I'm not going to tell you how to run your business, but that's what you should do with it. That's what you really should do with it. When you make that first chunk of money, that's what you should do. Okay. But when it comes to building equity, that is actually a long-term strategy. That's that buying and holding that we talked about. But that's also the same thing, discussing, besides buying and holding, it's also Airbnb, it's also short-term rental. So it all comes under the same umbrella. It's all in that same umbrella. Okay. Now, I told you that I wanted to share with you your tolerance. Like, what does your tolerance look like for you? And I have a little chart that will help you understand what does that tolerance look like for you. And I broke it down because it's important for you to understand what it should look like based on your lifestyle. And because I feel like I'm in a teaching mood today, I really want to share my screen and share with you what it should look like when you are moving from one space to the next space. All right. So let me make it bigger so we all can see. All right. So for your lifestyle, if you have low time and high job security, this fits into what I think the best fit for you could be: house hacking. Okay. Because you don't have time to do management. Why? Because you're using your existing salary, and this has a low entry, low down payment. There's nothing for you to do. Now, if you have moderate time and your risk tolerance is a little bit better, then you may consider a rental to build long-term wealth. So now you are buying and holding. You are Airbnb. But if you have that hustler energy and very low capital, then you are wholesaling. Now, the difference between being a short-term rental or Airbnb and wholesale, this here is chunks of money. It's fast money, and it doesn't require capital. That's the beauty of figuring out where you're at. What is your station in life? Where are you, and where do you see yourself? What fits your lifestyle best? That's why I say it requires some thinking on your part. Where do you see yourself, and where are you going with this? Okay, it's important for you to understand exactly what is it that you need to do. Now, I want to break it down to you, and I'm going to give you some materials to take with you for attending. I'll post it in our community, but at the same time, I want to give you some takeaways. A 90-day, your first 90 days, your action plan. This is my gift to you. Your first 90 days. So we talked about by the end of this year. I told you that we only have 1 quarter left. Action takers get things done. You can't sit on the fence hoping that this will work out for you. You are investing in listening to this. You are investing in yourself. So I want you to take action. The cohort for the next class that starts with She Invests Realty starts in November. By November, if you take action now, you should be way further. Then don't wait for me in November. Catch up when I start teaching. I teach a whole course in the She Invests Realty on wholesaling, if that's your strategy. We teach a whole separate course on every single one of these over that period of time. And the graduates from the 2024 class, they actually exit executed what they said they were going. Even the fixers and the flippers, they completed in that short period of time. So 90 days is a very, very achievable time frame. So in this 90 days, I want you to read a book. And this book is called The House Hacking Strategy by Craig Curlop. The House Hacking Strategy by Craig Curlop. He spells it Curelop. Or I want you to read BRRRR, which stands, I did a whole segment on Burr. I did a whole segment on Burr, but read Burr, which is BRRRR. What does BRR stand for? One more again. Okay. BRR stands for buy, rehab or renovate. I use the words, interchangeably. Buy, rehab, renovate, rent, and refinance. That is a real estate strategy. And there's a book by David Green that you should read. This is what you're doing in month 1. You're getting your mind right. You want to audit your finances. This is a time before you get to class. This is a time that you want to deal with that credit score. Work on that income and your savings. This matters because as the wheels start to turn in real estate investing, and when you are enrolled in the She Invest Academy, there are other things that we do that's going to help you build your capital, but your credit is important. Why is your credit important? Because we're going to talk about building business credit as well, not just your personal credit. Personal credit is important, but your business credit is too, which gives you access. There are programs with my program that I have lenders in my program that actually give you lines of credit. This is a whole mood. So let me stop right there. But there's a whole lot that comes with month 1. So I want you to work on that. And then I want you to choose month 1, choose whatever strategy I'm not saying you have to stick with it, but choose one of what I discussed. House hack, rental, wholesale, whatever it is, choose on it. I gave you some books on house hacking, and I'm giving you some strategy on BR so you can read over. So learn and decide. Month 1. So month 1 is October. Learn and decide. Okay. By the time November comes, which is month 2, network and build your team. What do you mean by that, Gladys? Okay. Very simple. I want you to meet one investor-friendly real estate agent. I am she and she is me, but I'm in the state of New Jersey. I'm telling you, wherever you are, find you a real estate. Now, where do you find those people? At a real estate investment club. You find them in meetups. You find them on Facebook. There's a bunch of agents out here and they all have their specialty, but not everyone is a real estate investor friendly agent. The reason why you want a real estate investor agent, because your business is different. You're not licensed. So you're not going to be looking for her to do things for you. However, that real estate agent, if she's really an investor-friendly agent, she'll know where to find low-hanging fruit. So use that to your advantage. And there's a huge opportunity in working with an agent that really knows what she's doing. You're helping her while she's helping you. Because if you buy off of the MLS, that's how that agent is going to get paid, right? So you become a client for her, and her capacity in working with you is she will be your buyer's agent. So find one of those in your area. Okay. Talk to lenders. That's part of your homework. Talk to lenders. You want to talk to lenders, traditional lenders. Now, we in the She Invest Academy, we have various lenders in our group. Shout out to Cindy. Dell says she's with Maximus Loans. She is a top lender that we use. Shout out to Shane Weisberger. He is actually a lender that we use across country. I'm shouting them out because these are lenders that are in our business. She Invests Realty. These are our preferred. We have a group of preferred lenders who understand our business. Our business is very different than traditional buying. So these lenders are connected to us for a reason, because they understand what we do. So they have products like DSCR. I did a whole segment on debt service credit ratio. That was a whole segment. In fact, I brought in Shane to discuss that with me. Go back and find that one, or tag me and say, hey, I really want to watch it, and I'll tell you what day I did it. They'll talk about that. And you want to make connections with hard money lenders. I think it was last week or the week before I discussed private money versus hard money. If you missed that, go back and listen to that. So I have tools that I have been providing you, so you can go back and get that from either me or someone else. But this is part of your homework in month 2. That puts you in November, right in time for the cohort. We start 2 weeks after this first cohort finished. We take a break right around Thanksgiving, and we jump into the next class session that starts in November, and that's going to be 10 weeks. So by the time you come into this course, if you've already started this, then you're going to hit the ground running. If you don't, then you'll find yourself lagging, but that's okay. That's why we start at the pace of week 1, week 2, week 3, and we go on. But if you're here tonight and you're seriously considering joining the She Invests Realty through She Rises Academy, then go to CoachGladys.com and learn more about how you can get in for the next module. This season, we are closed. All right. During month 2, you are to work on using the Bigger Pockets. Bigger Pockets is a real place. Go to biggerpockets.com. Use their calculator to analyze 5 deals. You're not really doing anything, but I want you to get the practice of analyzing the deals. Whether you know what you're doing or not, use it as a training ground. And then month 3. Month 3 is December. So while people are out Christmas shopping and doing that, you are getting your grind on, sis. You are serious about investing in yourself and making 2026 the year that you are no longer sitting on the sideline. This is the year that you say, no more. I don't want to sit on the sideline and hope and wish I could have, would have, should have. You know, this is a time for you to make that change. This is a time for you to really start to invest in yourself and take this life seriously. Month 3, get approved for a loan. Get approved or build a private money plan. I discussed private money, but if you're just catching on, private money is a whole different way of getting money. It's actually, it could be friends and family. It could be people you know. We talk, and there's actually a whole session that I did on private money. I want you to walk properties virtually or in person. Start picking out properties that you would like to invest in. You can go see a property in person, because in month 1, remember, you found a realtor investor, a real estate investor who is friendly in your line of business. You can be honest and tell them you're just getting started and that you are really considering investing in this area, and you just want to make sure that it makes sense. Once you are inside that property, it's going to feel differently, because now you are looking at it from the lenses of an investor. You're not looking at it as if you were going to live there. And what you decide to do with that property, are you going to buy it? Are you going to wholesale it? So really start to think of what strategy that you have picked in month 2 makes sense for you. And you want to make one offer. You want to lock up one deal. That quickly, Gladys? Kind of. If you do your homework the right way, it can move that quickly. That's why the course that I teach is fast moving, fast paced. It's actionable. And this assignment that I'm giving you is very synonymous to what you will be doing with me. I expect you every week to come in with that. I'm giving you a 90-day strategy in case you're not ready, but this is where you need to be. Okay. I want you to track all your progress on an Excel spreadsheet. Excel is where you want to start, but eventually you have other tools and systems. Done is better than perfect. I say it all the time. The first deal is going to help you build your confidence. This takes massive confidence. I don't want you to take it lightly. Now, I don't want you to take it lightly, but done is better than not doing it at all. All right. So I know I'm a little over time today, but I came in late. So I want to give you exactly, if you have any questions. Several were submitted to me earlier today, but if you have any questions, you can ask them. But I believe I got some here. So here we go. How much money do I really need to start? Well, if you missed it from the beginning, I said to you that if you don't own your first home, if you don't own your own home, I gave you a real example that it takes 3.5% down payment to get your own home. That's your first investment. I always strongly advise that is your first investment. But wholesaling is under $1,000 to get started if you even have no money at all. Under 1,000, because remember that money is not really ever going to be used. But you may have other investments. You may have, bring in a general contractor to confirm your RF. It all depends on how you're doing your business. We can talk about deeper strategy when you're enrolled, and then we'll understand, how you plan on doing your business. But for the most part, partnerships and creative financing is also a way to bridge the gap when you don't have your own money. So money is not really what you need. Skills is what you really need to get started. What if I have bad credit? Focus on the first 90 days. I just gave you a roadmap and I gave you a blueprint on what you need to do. In the first 90 days, we're talking about fixing your credit. Now, many lenders are not going to look at your credit. However, when it comes to investing, if you have no experience, sometimes they will look at your credit. Even though I work with asset-based lenders, asset-based is based on the asset itself. But if you have no experience, then they want to take a look at how do you manage your personal money. It doesn't always go that way, but they will take a look at it. I have lenders that lend as into the 580 credit score, but your interest rate, if you're using hard money, trust me, sis, it's going to be higher than 12 to 15%. We talked about that last time. If you're really serious about getting a deal done, don't focus on how high your interest rate, focus on your return on investment and what you're going to net from that deal. That's my advice to you. Okay. How do I manage tenants while working full time? Well, earlier we talked about what's your risk tolerance, right? So if you're not really the individual that is ready to deal with tenants, that may not be for you. So if you still feel like, it's a good idea, I'm only going to buy a condo, but I don't want to manage it. Let me give you some tips. You can hire a property manager. They have systems like Avail and Buildium. Buildium is Buildium or Hemlane. You can use any of those to help you with your systems in place. And start with the lower maintenance property. A condo is much better management than and a townhouse is also where you're not responsible for where, as a single family home, if they're not keeping up the property. That's where the headaches comes in, right? Where you're the one that's making sure that they're keeping up with their end of the bargain. If you don't incorporate lawn mowing, and you don't incorporate snow removal, if you live in a state that has snow, into what the tenant is responsible for, then you didn't cover all your costs, and you're not really clearing all the things you're clearing. And if you don't put certain things into your lease or your rental agreement with them, that they're calling you at 2 a.m. about a toilet, and and you're not living there, there are certain stipulations. Those that are in the program for buying and holding, we have contracts that we use in our program that have been reviewed. There's no such thing as a rock solid lease. Every state is different. And New Jersey is a very unfriendly state to be a landlord. But I will share with you that there are things that you can do to protect yourself over a period of time. I asked, is it better to invest out of state if my local market is expensive? I say as you gain experience, I would say yes, you can do that, but it also depends on how far out of state you are. When I first got started, since I was very inexperienced, I kept it closer to New Jersey. As I got more and more experience, yes, I invest out of state with no problem. I'm able to do fix and flips there. I'm able to do wholesales there. It's different when I have that, and I have a system and I have a team in place. So when you're first getting started, you may not have all the different system and tools in place. But it's definitely easier if your deal is nearby and you start to make those local connections before you expand outside of your area. All right. I have a few more. What if I'm scared and I'll mess up? I talk about this all the time. If you are scared to do real estate investing, then this might not be the field for you. But with confidence, you will be able to overcome it every time. I was very scared when I first got into real estate, and I didn't get into it by accident. I was deliberate in how I got into real estate. So I hired a coach. Now, not just because I'm a coach, I'm sharing that with you, but that's a true story. I joined real estate investing on purpose, and it was intentional. The reason why I joined real estate on purpose is I shared at the beginning that I was looking to steal away from my full-time job eventually. And I definitely wasn't looking for a part-time job. So I was looking for a wealth building tool, and real estate does it. So instead of investing in every single program, I actually hired a real estate coach to one-on-one coach me. And that's how I got started. So if you're thinking, I'm afraid to do this, then go back and watch the interview of a student who went through fix and flip with me and was successful in her very first fix and flip. That was the strategy she chose. Okay. But because she chose it, we executed successfully, profitable. Profitable here in the state of New Jersey because that was her choice, and that's what she wanted to learn how to do. Now she's moving on into multi-units, and her next project is actually a multi-unit property that she is preparing to fix flip, but not flip. She's actually fixing and flipping it and renting it out. So now she's moving into the buy and hold. So students that have coached with me have started and continue to coach with me under different strategies, under different realms. Okay. Everyone has their lane. You pick what's best for you. All right. So I always say, if you can't afford a coach at this time, then take the 90-day plan that I gave you. Start small. Don't start big. But your first door is a classroom. Okay. Get that right education. It's not forever. It's just a classroom. That is your door. That is your entry. That is what you need in order for you to understand. And with that education comes the confidence. And with that confidence, you'll be able to execute the simplest strategy, because once you do it for real, it will feel, a little nerve-wracking. Now, I'm not saying you're not going to be nervous, but it will take the fear out of it. Now, in my closing remarks to you, thank you for joining me. I do want to share with you that, take the next step by starting small. Not doing anything is not an option anymore. Read one of the books that I definitely mentioned to you. Talk to a lender, tour a duplex, see if that feels right for you. And of course, don't ever give up on yourself. Just because you may not be where you want to be now, you will get there step by step. Thank you for joining me tonight. I really appreciate having you. I look forward to sharing another exciting topic with you next week on Women Wealth Wednesday. And I'll see you at the closing table. Have a good evening.